Naturally, one of the most popular questions I get is how much do I need to spend on Google Ads? And there's a variety of contributing factors which we'll talk about. But the main one is going to be, well, what is your budget? So, as a business, you'll have a budget set aside for advertising, and within that budget, you'll allow for digital advertising. So, and that is obviously split between stuff like Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads. So that's a factor. But let me give you a better idea, first of all, of the contributing factors that will determine your budget. Or the results you get from the budget that you've got. And then we'll have a look at some examples of live clients that I work with currently, the results they're getting and the money that they're spending. So looking at the contributing factors. So first of all, we've got the population size. So the population size in any area. Let me give you an example. If we were running an advert in Wales, for example, we know that Wales there's a lot of greenery, and so in a 5 mile radius, you might have only a few hundred houses. Where if we come across to say Bristol, in Bristol and a 5 mile radius, we might have thousands of houses. So just be aware of that. Home ownership is another one. So with home ownership, um, whether people own their houses or not. So if you are advertising and most of the area is rented properties, then I'm afraid you're not going to get as good a result. You might still get leads, but those leads might be from tenants trying to find out how much the house is worth that they live in. So that's another factor to take into consideration. The next one is a residential status. And so, what I mean by that is not specifically whether they're a tenant or a homeowner, but the status of whether that's a second property for them and the vacancy rates in certain areas, mostly London, as I put on there. So, there's a lot of people that own second properties in London. There's a lot of foreigners that are living abroad that own property in London. So that's to take into consideration as well. And also places like Cornwall, where people own second holiday homes down there. So there might be an area that's mostly holiday homes, and people live up in London or Midlands or whatever. So the residential status is a contributing factor. The competition. So what I mean by competition is how many other estate agents in your area are also advertising on Google, and what kind of buying power have they got? So when we look at the likes of any online agents, so Purple Bricks, Strike, any of the online agents, their budget is going to be a lot higher because that's their main chunk of their advertising. To be fair, it should be the main chunk of most of our advertising because everything's online now. But they might have someone with a lot of buying power, or even your bigger corporate firms that are owned, say Sequins or Countrywide. They might have a bigger budget. Now, if they do have a bigger budget, if we are buying the term or bidding on the term, what is my house worth? Google will do an instant auction and it will have a look at whose advert is most suitable and what budget that advert has got. So it's not to say that if you've got a small advert, you're going to get outbid every time. That's not the case. But just be aware that those phrases can be slightly more expensive. So they will affect something like your cost per click and the cost per acquisition. So your cost per lead, if you like. The next one is algorithms. Unfortunately, Google is a big machine and we will never work out the algorithms. I'm not convinced that people that built Google even know what the algorithms do nowadays. But the algorithms will do what they need to do to try and get you a result. And in the same breath that they might not be getting you a result. So just again, be aware that that the algorithms is something we can't control. So if your results drop in any given month, it might be just because of the algorithms. And the reason I mention that is because recently I've dealt with a series of algorithms that have made the results drop slightly, but within the week they picked up again. So that's just something to be aware of rather than anything that we can work on. And then the final contributing factor would be the strategy that you've got. I'll give you an example. One of my clients, they just want to be seen everywhere. So they want to have a display advert, they want to search adverts, they're on YouTube. They just want to pop up everywhere. They're not even too bothered whether people then go ahead and book a valuation off the back of the adverts. They just want to make sure more people see them. Similar to the old days when we used to advertise, say, on a roundabout, and people used to see your sign every time you drove past it, or for sale boards as well. People drive past for sale boards and see those. So this guy just wanted to be visible, and he had a budget to be visible. So yeah, strategy has a lot to is a big contributing factor depending on the strategy that you're using. Um, so that's the contributing factors. Um, I'm going to show you now one of the biggest, and this is why I put it first, one of the biggest contributing factors is the size of the population. So let's look at some examples of clients that I currently work with. Let me just move myself. So I've had to block out the agents' names. However, we look at the age of the advert. I've done everything from 0 through to 6 months. Any further than 6 months, the results is going to kind of stay the same. So 30 days worth of leads, and I've done examples of everyone paying £10 per day, just to give you an idea of how population size affects the cost per lead and the amount of leads coming in. For example, this top agent here, at the time I did this research, 6 months they had the age of the advert. The reason the age of the advert's important is because there's a learning phase with Google Ads, and that learning phase can be anything up to 12 months. I find that with the clients I work with, within a 3 to 6 month period, the advert is hitting their optimal levels, and you're able to tell through various things that we look at where that optimal level is. So you've got 30 days, 162 leads, but look at the size of that population, 3.1 million. So that's a big population. I don't know how they work the population out with Google, but if you put all the postcode sectors in, it'll tell you the population size. So that's how we've carried out this exercise. Then we've got 128 there for 2.1 million. And then if you drop down here, we've got in the 700,000s, you can see that we're hitting sort of anything between 50 and 60 valuation leads per month. And then I've just put another example down here where the agents had only been advertising with us for 2 weeks. They'd had the 29 leads in, the population size of just over 800,000. And you can see the cost per lead is £10.30 in the first 2 weeks. But then when you hit 6 months, £1.88, £2.37. And on average, we do try and get the cost per lead below £5 per lead, which gives you a good amount of leads as well. So now let's have a look at some clients and some clients that I'm working with. We're going to look from £10 a day to £100 a day and see what kind of difference that makes. So the first agent here is, hang on, let me put it over there. The first agent here is spending £10 per day. The age of this advert now is 14 months, and they've averaged out on around 79 valuations per 30 days. So 79 valuations per month, which is pretty good at a cost of £3.60 per lead. Next agent, £20 a day. The age of the advert is 8 months. So again, a fairly mature advert, and they're getting 166 leads per month. Now, a point to make on these two is that it doesn't necessarily work where you double the money, you get double the results. In this case, it has though, which is interesting. Quite often, if you're getting 79 valuations per day at £10 a day, 79 valuations per month at £10 a day, you would probably get about 120 at £20 per day, but this advert is performing particularly well, and probably a larger population size maybe. But nevertheless, cost per conversion is a very similar. So £20 a day, 166 valuation leads per month. Then we move on to agent number 3, £60 per day. This is a multi-branch agency, as is this one here. So £60 per day. The advert is around 14 months old, and they are getting 288 conversions or instant valuation leads per month. at a cost of £5.73. I do know that this agent is a bit further down south, where the leads tend to get slightly more expensive. But again, to give you a good idea of what £60 a day could get you, so that works out 288 leads per month. And then the big one, £100 per day, again, a multi-agency branch where we're running separate campaigns for each one of the offices. £100 per day. The age of the advert's only 5 months old. So I do think that these results will still continue to improve. And we're getting 503 valuation leads per month for £100 a day. And so, yes, this one's a multi-agency branch, but if you've got the budget as a single agency branch and you think you can handle 500 leads per month and you've got the system behind it, i.e. the nurture system behind it to look after the leads, then, go ahead and spend that £100 a day. I hope that's been helpful, and we'll speak to you soon.